Alright, Foundation of Education. Peers. I was given chapters 11 to 13, read the chapters, put them into a Google slide for you. So let's get right on into it. So hello, first off, my name is David Hunsiger. I'm a senior at LCTI, and my goal in the coming years is to become a high school history teacher. LCTI is right across from LTRC, so yeah, I'm currently going there for early childhood care, though my real passion is high school. The first chapter I was assigned was chapter 11, Classroom Management. So this is a great quote from Confucius. I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, and I do and I understand. I'll try and break it down for you. So the I hear and I forget can be best summed up, it goes in one ear and out the other. I see and I remember and I do and I understand can be best summarized as I could see what you're doing, but I'll never fully understand until I do it. And this goes hand in hand with what classroom management's all about. It's all about engaging your students and seeing what best fits them. Not everybody's a kinesthetic learner. People are audio, visual, textile. There's just so many different types of people out there and so many learning styles. So what are we going to be talking about? So we're going to be talking about the importance of active learning and some strategies to help you in the classroom, some positive and negative discipline, some brain-based learning principles, when should we reward/punish, is praising good, and how to motivate students. So first off, we have to know what active learning is. So active learning is a educational approach to instruction that involves actively engaging students with the course material through discussions, problem solving, case studies, dramatic play, and multiple other methods. We're going to be going through those methods right now, so let's get into it. So our first method is lecture, exercise, review, summarize, and repeat. So basically, you start with a lecture and break it into small segments. You move on to a activity or exercise, and this is dependent on the class. You review the answers as a group. You summarize the important ideas, and you repeat it. Next is peer teaching. This is exactly how it sounds. Students become the teacher. They teach other students. And Lynn Schultz is quoted with saying, "We learn about 95% of what we teach other people." I think this is super true. Next is cooperative groups and debates. These kind of go hand to hand in some way. So they're both small groups where they learn from each other to get a goal. For debates, you have two sides of a topic. This could be a free lunch. So should we have free lunches or should we not have free lunches? And each group member would have to know the knowledge about the subject. You would call on them and be like, why do you think we should have free lunches? Or why do you not think we should have free lunches? And so on. Next, we have dramatic play and case studies. So dramatic play allows the students to put themselves in the shoes of another person. This could be like you put them into senator positions for different states and have a session of Senate in your classroom. Case studies are researching real life problems, leaving out the conclusions and having them form their own conclusions. A simulation. So simulations bring real life examples into the classroom. You'll see this a lot with math because it's very easy to put in math. Basically, this is also can be applied to both dramatic play and case studies. Next is games. Games are a great way to keep the children actively listening to what you're teaching. So basically, you play games. There's Jeopardy, there's Kahoot, Look It, and so you would allow a prize to be won. This could be as small as being the first one in line at lunch, or could be a homework pass. So, yeah. So traditional learning versus active learning. So this is according to a study conducted at Newsom Park Elementary School in Newport News, Virginia. A jump of scores were detected when using an active learning plan in math from 35% to 65%, science from 52% to 79%, and English from 53% to 65%. So basically, they put the tradition, they were teaching with a traditional learning plan, and then they moved it to an active learning plan, and they saw an increase of all test scores, math, science, and English. So let's move on to discipline. So positive discipline factors. So first off, you have to have mutual respect between the teacher and the student. You have to know what drives this behavior. And sometimes you have to take it from a different angle. You have to focus on the improvement, and you have to encourage that student. And what is it based on? Well, positive discipline is based on the understanding that discipline must be taught and that discipline teaches. That's from Jay Nelson at the Positive Discipline Associates. So then there's the 12 brain principles to help in the classroom. I'm kind of going to gloss over a couple of these since it's a long list, and droving on about this I don't think will help anybody, but I will quickly talk about it. So the first and second kind of go hand in hand. The brain is a complex adaptive system and a social brain. We drive for that social aspect of life. The search for meaning is innate. The search for meaning occurs through patterning. Emotions are critical to patterning. Every brain simultaneously perceives and creates parts and wholes. Learning involves both focused attention and peripheral attention, and it also involves conscious and unconscious processes. We have at least two ways of organizing memory. Learning is developmental. Complex learning is enhanced by challenge and inhibited by threat. And every brain is uniquely organized. Every human is unique in their own way. So what is positive and negative reinforcement? Well, positive reinforcement is the introduction of a desirable or pleasant stimulus after a behavior. So this can be as simple as giving a piece of candy to a student who helps another student when they fall. Basically, this will make it so a behavior is more likely to reoccur. And negative reinforcement. So this basically strengthens a response or behavior by stopping, removing, or avoiding a negative outcome or reverse stimulus. So I found this neat little tidbit for The Simpsons. So basically, in the negative reinforcement, we see something happens which results in a stimulus being removed, which in this case is, it appears to be candy, sweets, all that, and the behavior improves. And the positive reinforcement, we see Bart, who's in the top right corner. He stayed up all night studying. He did really good. So he ended up getting a Game Boy for doing good, or a pack of cards for being good. Positive and negative reinforcement are not 100% effective, but they are usually pretty effective. Response cost. So these are alternatives to a negative reinforcement. So response cost is so basically a student can have rewards or privileges taken away when he/she/they demonstrate problem behavior, even if it is only momentarily. So let's say you have a child who's the line leader for that day. If that child decides to pull somebody's hair, right? You explain it's bad, check on the other child, do all that. Maybe that's a bad way to look at it. You would take something away from them. Next, motivation. So this is a basic definition of motivation. It's the desire to act in service of a goal. very simple. So they also talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So basically, it's split into a pyramid of 5 things, from psychological needs, such as air, water, and food, to self-actualization, like the desire to become the most that one can be. And it's very interesting. If you want to, you could pause here and read the rest of it. And basically, you have to do the bottom to get to the next level, and get to the top. So there's 2 types of motivation. There's intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic is within the student or within the person, and extrinsic comes from an external source. So then there's the self-determination theory. So the self-determination theory is 3 senses: autonomy, belonging, and competence. So autonomy, basically students need to feel the sense of control and self-determination. They need to feel like they're accepted by their peers and teachers. And they also need to feel capable of succeeding. Because if there's no reason, if there's no able way to succeed, then why even try? So the second chapter that I was assigned is chapter 12, Ethics and Laws. This delves deep into case studies. So I'm going to be going through a couple case studies, a couple determining factors for our rights as educators and students' rights as students. So this is a quote from Brown v. Board of Education. I'll delve into it in a slide coming up. We conclude that the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. It's a nice quote from the judge who was presiding over this case in the Supreme Court. Basically means that even though these two there was schools for African Americans, schools for Caucasian students, and they could never be equal. So, separate but equal was a very prominent phrase. So what are we going to talk about? Creating equity in the classroom, some teachers and students' rights, what is an ethical teacher, and how to teach ethics. So first off, we have to talk about Brown v. Board of Education. Alright, so this took place in Topeka, Kansas in the 50s. This was a landmark case for the ending of separate but equal in schools across the country. So the Supreme Court found that all white and all black schools were unconstitutional under the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. So, 3 tips to reform your educational philosophy. So these are some tips just to reform your educational philosophy. It's very important to have an educational philosophy. If you don't have one yet, it's alright. We're still learning as teachers, even when we're in the field. So, know how stereotypes influence traditional school thinking, practices, and placement, and critique your own thoughts and practices to ensure they do not reinforce prejudiced behavior. Recognize the connection between culture and learning, and see students' cultural capital as an asset and not a detriment to their school success. Be mindful of how traditional teaching practice reflect middle-class European American cultural values, and seek to incorporate a wider range of dynamic and fluid teaching practices. So be multicultural, be accepting of other things that would not constitute as typical in the school setting. So gender. Gender is the most controversial issue of the current century that we live in, the current year we've lived in. We've had a lot of strife, so simply we have to be flexible on how we interpret gender. We have to know the more social function that male and females have with each other, and we also have to know the impact on how they process different types of information, and I'll get into this in a little bit. So, what makes a male and a female different in a typical sense? So, males are more competitive and physical and manipulate objects and perceive patterns easier, where females are more talkative and cooperative but have a higher language sense. This of course does not mean that we should treat them differently. That's what equity is based about, giving people equal opportunities to resources. So that brings me on my next point. Why should we have co-educational classrooms? So co-educational means that there's boys and girls boys, and of course those who don't fit into either category. So the main reason we have these is because the traits of the men usually rub off on the girls and vice versa, and we should be everyone since opportunities that they can get. That's our job as teachers, to give people opportunities to succeed in life the best we can. So these are 12 steps to a holistic approach to learning. First off, we start with high quality early childhood education programs. Early childhood will help and will impact them further down the line. Rigorous and challenging curricula for all students. Some high quality teaching. Effective, sustained educational leadership. An appropriate class size. We don't want too little or we don't want too many students where the teacher feels overwhelmed. Mental and physical health care services. These can be a school psychologist and a nurse. Appropriate academic support for ELLs, or English language learners, special education students, and children in areas of highly concentrated poverty. Effective after-school, community, and summer programs. Parental involvement and family support. And policies that foster racially and economically diverse schools. We want those schools to be different in a good way. So, what are my rights as a teacher? What are your rights as a teacher? So, as a teacher, you're someone a student or coworker can confide in. In the act that you notice the student could be being neglected or abused, it is your job to report it. This is cited under the Child Abuse and Prevention and Treatment Act, or CAPTA. You are legally required to report any suspected neglect or abuse that a child could face. Of course, in some cases you do have to break confidentiality, such as that, but other times you're expected to hold confidentiality to the highest degree. So there's 3 types of abuse. There's physical, emotional, and sexual. I'll go through them. So physical is non-accidental physical injury that harms a child. This could be punching, beating, kicking, biting, anything like that. Emotional, these are patterns of behavior that impairs the child's development of sense of self-worth. Sexual, this can be activities by a parent or caregiver that is sexual in nature. This could be fondling a child's genitals, penetration, incest, etc. And any of these can fall under the parent or caregiver. That is just specifically pointed out as a parent or caregiver. Moving on, some possible signs of abuse. So there's a couple signs of abuse that you could see. There's bruises, lumps, welts, repeated broken bones, burns, a shyness around adults, being often absent, frequent accidents such as wetting their pants, a lack of concentration, some poor academic performance, high aggression, an early arrival to school and a reluctance to leave, and just being unsociable. None of these if you see it, report it. Make sure to take documentation and report it. Some possible signs of neglect. The child appears to always be hungry. They're unorganized. They have an unorganized train of thought. The child appears to suffer from medical and dental neglect, and the child comes to class in clothes that appear dirty or worn. So, how do we report abuse/neglect? So when you suspect a child is being abused, you go to your supervisor. You want to, of course, get that you went to your supervisor in writing, because there have been cases where teachers have gotten in trouble for this when they've gone to their supervisor, when they've gone to their principal, because they had no documentation in court to prove it. So after this, the supervisor will contact Child Protective Services, or CPS, and if you are the supervisor, and someone comes to you, contact CPS, provide them with basic information, name, address, all that. So let's get into some court cases. So Tinker versus Des Moines High School District. So this court case is all about the First Amendment of freedom of speech, expression, and religion. In short, 2 high school students went to school with armbands to oppose the Vietnam War. The school shut this down and suspended them until they took the armbands off. You may be wondering, what happened? Well, here it is. We can see through this case where the court ruled for the student, saying the student's actions did not disrupt the learning environment or advocate or cause harm to themselves or others. It was permissible. So this upheld the First Amendment right in this case, siding with Tinker. Moores v. Frederick. So a high school student in Frederick went to a local parade off school grounds and held up a flag which read "Bong Hits for Jesus," and was suspended after not putting it down by Morse, who was a school official. Something like this also happened around our area in Easton. I can't think of it off the top of my head. If I remember it, I'll link it in the comment of this video. The outcome of this, the Supreme Court sided with Morse due to being able to safeguard those entrusted to their care from speech that can reasonably be regarded as encouraging illegal drug use. In this case, we see that we're kind of seen as the temporary parents when they're under our care. So some other cases that are related to the First Amendment, we have West Virginia v. Barnett. This was a court case that ruled it was illegal for schools to force students to salute the American flag or say the Pledge of Allegiance. The Bethel School District versus Fraser. Student Matthew Fraser was suspended for using sexual language in his speech on school grounds. The court ruled the school district had the right to prohibit lewd, indecent, or plainly offensive language. Gills v. Marinu. Student was suspended for wearing a shirt depicting George Bush as an alcoholic, as then President George Bush as an alcoholic and drug addict. Court sided with the student, saying the shirt did not advocate the use of illegal drugs, and the shirt did not cause significant disruptions to the learning environment. I would love to see what you guys think of some of these court cases in the comments, because some of these I agree with, some of these don't. New Jersey versus TLO. This court case is all about the Fourth Amendment of unreasonable search and seizure. In short, 2 students were found smoking marijuana, and the assistant principal searched the bag of the second one after saying she had not done anything wrong. Specifically, the second person saying, "I did nothing wrong, I was not smoking marijuana." The assistant principal found cigarettes, drugs, drug paraphernalia, along with a large amount of money. Later, she would be charged with delinquency in a court. And this made its way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court found that the school official may properly conduct a search of a student's person if the official has a reasonable suspicion that a crime has been or is in the process of being committed, or reasonable to believe that the search is necessary to maintain school discipline or enforce school policies. Basically, they don't need evidence, just a strongly based suspicion. Some other cases related to the Fourth Amendment, the state of Iowa v. Marcel Jones. So a search was conducted on a student's locker. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of the school, noting that the search occurred on school grounds where the state is reasonable for maintaining discipline, health, and safety. Renonia School District v. Acton. James Acton wanted to play football, but was required to get a urinalysis since of the rising drugs rates in the country. Court ruled in favor of the school district, citing public health as a goal. Fifth and 14th Amendment. Schools are required to uphold the 5th and 14th Amendment when it pertains to a disciplinary action or a disciplinary expulsion, not an academic one. They were required to give timely and informal hearing and a detailed explanation of the charges, have strict adherence to the school's stated policy, and a punishment that fits the crime. So some other cases. Ingram versus Wright ruled that the 8th and 14th Amendment don't count when it comes to corporal punishment in schools. Hazelwood v. Coomer ruled that the censorship of student newspapers was not illegal and was legal. Now we have to move on to the commitment to the student. This has to do with the ethical boundaries that the National Education Association puts out there, or the NEA. So 1 shall not unreasonably restrain the student from independent action in the pursuit of learning. 2 shall not unreasonably deny the students access to varying points of view. shall not deliberately suppress or distort subject matter relevant to the student's progress, shall make reasonable effort to protect the student from conditions harmful to learning or to health and safety, shall not intentionally expose the student to embarrassment or disparagement, shall not, on the basis of race, color, creed, sex, national origin, marital status, political or religious beliefs, family, social or cultural background, or sexual orientation, unfairly exclude any student from participation in any program, deny benefits to any student, or grant any advantages to any student, shall not use professional relationships with students for private advantage, shall not disclose information about students obtained in the course of professional service unless disclosure serves a compelling professional purpose or is required by law. Now it's the commitment to your profession. Shall not, in an application for a professional position, deliberately make a false statement or fail to disclose a material fact related to competency and qualifications. Shall not misrepresent his/her professional qualifications. Shall not assist any entry into the profession of a person known to be unqualified in respect to character, education, or other relevant attribute. Shall not knowingly make a false statement concerning the qualifications of a candidate for a professional position. Shall not assist a non-educator in unauthorized practice of teaching. Shall not disclose information about colleagues obtained in the course of professional service unless disclosure serves a compelling professional purpose or is required by law. Shall not knowingly make false or malicious statements about a colleague. Shall not accept any gratuity, gift, or favor that might impair or appear to influence professional decisions or actions. Now let's move on to the last chapter. Technology. It's around us. Chapter 13. This is a quote from Bill Gates. Technology is just a tool. In terms of getting the kids working together and motivating them, the teacher is most important. Thank you, Bill Gates. Inspired me. So what are we going to talk about? It's some advantages and disadvantages of technology. What is Web 2.0? Textbook writing, virtual schools. What is a digital native/immigrant, and how to teach a digital native. So let's talk about some advantages and disadvantages of technology. First off, the advantages. So first off, it promotes project-based learning, some leadership, organization, and computer skills. You have more hireability in the workforce. You produce higher quality writing, and you have the motivation to come to school. And it's been shown that it actually decreases your academic absences with the inclusion of technology. Some disadvantages: it's hard to learn for some people. Some teachers are reluctant to change from their old ways. A lack of interaction between the student and teacher sometimes, and computer problems also play a factor where there could be some issues with computers. So, what is Web 2.0? Now, going into this, I didn't know what Web 2.0 is. I always knew it as the World Wide Web, the Internet, all that. So, it refers to an evolution of usability of Internet applications by way of collaboration technologies for social uses in different arenas, such as business and education. So, it fits kind of right into the education sphere. So, some examples: there's Google Drive, there's Twitter, there's YouTube, there's TED, which is TED Talks, Moodle, and more. Google Drive, of course, you could share it. It's collaborative. Twitter, it's collaborative. You're talking to people. It's social. YouTube, you're sharing stuff. TED, educational. You're learning. You're collaborating with people. Moodle, you're collaborating with people. And of course, there's more like Facebook and so many others. So, students writing textbooks. People have used written language for thousands upon thousands of years, even back in caveman times. In the sense of a textbook, a group of students would choose one or two articles to work collaboratively with other students to create an informative piece on a certain topic. So this could be how to make the correct PB&J, and or more academically, this. What are the effects of writing your own textbook? You understand your weaknesses and are able to improve in those weaknesses. There's new, better textbooks for teachers in high poverty schools, and you also have a higher ability, and you can put it on your resume. So what is a virtual school? So a virtual school is one that is taught primarily online and is a form of accredited institution. These virtual schools also tend to gain public funding, and many public and private colleges have online programs that can range from all sorts of topics. What is a digital native and a digital immigrant? A digital native is someone who is comfortable with technology and computers at an early age and consider technology to be an integral and necessary part of their lives. So this would be like me, and like a lot of you here. So a digital immigrant who is someone who is familiar with everyday technology, but they weren't born in the 80s. So technology started becoming a really big thing in education, late 70s, through the early 90s, early 80s era. So how do we teach a digital native like myself? So to teach, it can be very tricky, and it requires a lot of time, a lot of preparation. The first thing, we have to know fake news exists. Fake news does exist. It's fake information out on the internet. This is something that we need to know. We need to teach how to identify fake news and truthful news and separate them. So secondly, we have to watch out for plagiarism. Plagiarism is a big thing, and we'll always, as educators, have to look out for it. We also need to remember that some schools don't have enough money to get every student a one-to-one laptop. This is basically, you have your own laptop, you can take it to and from school, you can work at home. And also, some people just can't afford that expensive things. So, I wanted to say thanks. If you have any questions, you can of course ask in the comments below. I will be happy to answer them. I meant to delete the you can find me at username and user@mail.me. That's my fault. But if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I'll try my best to answer them. I'll also include the link to the Google Slides presentation. So if you wanted to follow along, or if you need to look back, you can always do that. And well, I took a lot of liberties from a bunch of sites. These give great information on psychology and everything from that. So I hope you enjoyed, and well, I'll see you. And well, thank you for listening to me ramble on.